Welcome back to Beyond Well Science. I'm Sheila Hamilton, and this is a program where we're introducing you to some of the pioneers in thinking and advocating for better practices in mental health. Today, we're talking with Giovan Bazan. He is not only a board member of the Foundation for Excellence in Mental Health Care, he is a person who has firsthand experience with the mental health arena, and he's also now an international speaker about recovery and about more practical ways that we can help people who are struggling with psychological distress. Good morning, Giovan.
Good morning, Sheila. How are you?
It's so great to talk with you. I was sort of obsessing over all of your YouTube videos and the various way that you're out talking about your history. And I'm, first of all, just really excited that there's somebody like you sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much, Sheila. It's near and dear to my heart, and it impacts everyone who's human. So it's something that's very important. And I'm certainly inspired by everything that you've done and accomplished in the field of mental health. It certainly gives me, a lot of hope to keep pushing and to keep sharing my story and to keep trying to promote mental wellness.
So I want to go back to Atlanta, Georgia. You, as a 6-year-old, you're told you have a mental illness. Why?
Well, that was immediately preceding my first foster mother passing away of cancer. She was the first foster mother that I went to, and our bond was really strong. And she passed away, so that was a traumatic experience for me. And so what I exhibited in my behavior as a result of losing someone close to me was interpreted as severe mental health challenges, which, in fact, I was distressed at the time. However, the foster care system's first response was to medicate, and that was the long-term intention, was to have me on medications for what I was told would be the rest of my life. So yeah, that was at 6 years old.
Okay, so I've talked to many people who began medications very early, and they describe a kind of numbing of their senses, a sort of cloak coming over their creativity and their energy and what it was that they were doing. Yes, the behavior goes away, but also going away is that kind of zest for life. Was that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly feel like it compromised the integrity of who I am as a human, like our creativity. So I just remember when I first went on medications, just feeling like this fog, this thick gray cloud was just constantly hanging over me. And it's like, I just, to be completely honest, I mean, food didn't taste the same. Like my friends, I just didn't have a desire to hang out with them at school. I didn't want to sit with them. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I felt like I had no energy, no drive, nothing to look forward to. And this was consistent, for many, many years, for the 12 years that I was on psychotropic medications, of which they were constantly new doses and new medications and new prescriptions. So that was certainly something that I can agree with. I did experience that a lot throughout those 12 years.
And in your research, Giovan, you've been able to show that foster kids and kids who are poor in neighborhoods that are blighted tend to be given prescriptions more readily and at higher doses than kids who are from upper economic status and white, correct?
Sure. So there's so much intersectionality with mental health and so many other social justice issues or challenges that we experience. So for communities that are oppressed, so these would be communities of poverty, which, typically it's communities of color. And so when you experience poverty, it makes it very difficult to have things like insurance, which will afford you the opportunity to go and get treatment for mental health challenges that you may be experiencing. So you see in poor communities or lower income communities, and you see in other populations that are smaller populations of people that experience types of oppression, you see that mental health challenges there's an increase in mental health challenges because they're not allowed the opportunity, one, to get the treatment that they need, that we need, and also the opportunities for how we recover are very limited. So in a system such as the foster care system or the juvenile justice system, it's in the big picture a very small population of young people compared to the United States. And so what they do is have sort of a cookie cutter method where, oh, we see behavioral challenges, we're just going to medicate and heavily sedate and seduce this young person because it's easier to sedate them than it is to really afford them the opportunities of recovery with alternatives to medication or in support of medication, coinciding with that medication treatment, things like, therapy, art therapy, open dialogue, just different practices that allow people to recover in their own way, which is how it should be.
And Giovan, you walked that path yourself, right? Would you describe to people what you had to do to finally get yourself healthy, both spiritually, mentally, and physically?
Absolutely. I mean, throughout my journey in foster care, because all of the immediate and close attachments that I had were cut off, I basically developed this internal narrative for my life that I was meant to be alone, that I was never meant to have a healthy relationship or attachment with another person, that I wasn't valid in this world, didn't have a purpose. And so that narrative stuck with me my entire life. And so because I was accustomed to being by myself and isolating myself, I continued that habit, that pattern of behavior. And so what helped me to become healthier holistically was to disrupt that narrative by opening up to other people and opening up to relationships and connecting with people. And so, there's an old idiom that says it takes a village to raise a child. Well, and also to support an adult. As people, we need support. So things like peer support, peer groups, being around people who have had maybe not the exact same experiences, but other challenges who can relate to what I've gone through and stuff. So that support was one of the most critical things for me. So having friends, having mentors, having even, people at church, people at, school, my age or adults who I could just, if I was having a bad day, they would be there to support me during the good, bad, and ugly. So that was a huge thing, was allowing myself to develop support systems and maintaining those healthy support systems. Setting boundaries with other people is really important. So we talk a lot about how physical health impacts our mental health as well and our holistic health. And that was a tremendous thing for me as well. So, just because I didn't have any external sort of positive reinforcement, like I didn't have relationships with other people. So the way that I got my dopamine release was to basically gorge myself with food. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, I don't need anybody else because, food makes me happy type deal. Food gives me that type of euphoric feeling when, of connection or pleasure that we get in other areas of life. So focusing on my diet, putting healthy things into my body, and then exercising more frequently were also two tremendous things. So probably the top three for me was finding and maintaining a healthy support system and knowing that will evolve fluidly throughout life, and eating healthy and exercising.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think that things that keep people mentally healthy are so basic that people want to dismiss them, but they're powerful, right? They're very, very powerful. Well, Giovan, you're now an international speaker on this issue of social justice and for people that are interested in supporting the foster care system. What's the most rewarding thing for you when you're going out and seeing perhaps other foster care kids who are hearing your story?
Yeah, definitely afterwards. So, whenever young people are involved and adults are talking to them, it's been my experience when I was a teenager that when adults would talk to me, my eyes would glaze over and I'd kind of roll my eyes and be like, oh, here we go, lecture time. So, and I see that, as I've traveled the country and in other countries as well, and I've gone to speak to these young people, it's always like there's this initial hesitation to connect or to want to listen or something of that nature. And so being able to be truly authentic, to lift up my shirt in essence and show my scars, to let other people know that healing is possible. for them to be able to show that to other people, to young people, and for that to kind of bring those barriers that they put up, those walls that they put up to protect themselves because of what they've been through, to see those come down to where that they can connect with someone, even though, I'm a decade or almost, a decade and a half older than they are. We still share similar life experiences. And even though they haven't completely gone through what they're going through, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And, if they continue to push and they continue to support each other and continue to find healthy ways to promote their wellness and recovery, then their life is ultimately what they choose it to be, what they choose to create it to be. So that's one of the most profound things, is when someone comes up to me after a presentation and says, "Me too, and I've always felt alone, and now I know I'm not alone, and now I know that everything wasn't just in vain."
Wow. Well, you're such an amazingly optimistic and inspirational person, Giovan. I hope everybody goes and checks out your YouTube videos. And if you need a speaker, this is the kind of work that Giovanni is doing. Thanks for your work on the Foundation for Excellence in Mental Health Care. And thanks a lot for being with us today, Giovanni.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a great pleasure. And being on the board of directors for the Foundation for Excellence in Mental Health Care has certainly been a great opportunity for me to push my passion and purpose for mental wellness around the world on a global level. So I'm very grateful to serve on their board as a board member.
Thanks again, Giovan. So good to talk with you.
You too, Sheila. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.